Hello and welcome to the Europe Conversation. I'm Stefan Grobe. My guest today is a man who stood up to Moscow when he was Prime Minister of Lithuania more than 10 years ago. An experience that serves him well today as the European Union's first ever Commissioner for Defence, Andrius Kubilius. Thank you for coming on the show, sir.
My pleasure.
So, as Prime Minister, you took on the Russian energy sector. You claimed compensation for damages during the Soviet era in vain to this day. Problems that only sound too familiar in Ukraine today. Does Russia is ever going to change?
Well, I still hope that we shall see at some time, many years in the future, more normal Russia. Today, definitely, Russia with Putin is a bigger threat to European security, and we see the terrible war in Ukraine. And that is what we were able to predict almost 10 years ago, where Russia is moving.
It's almost more than a year now that you're a Commissioner for Defense, a portfolio that has become the most important, the most consequential within the European Commission. Did you see that coming?
Well, when I was nominated as the first ever Commissioner for Defense and Space, he was quite skeptical opinions around that, well, what this Commissioner will do, that Europe is not so much engaged into defense. But that was really very, very prudent decision by Commission President to establish such a portfolio, because during this year, really, defense became one of the most important strategic priorities for the whole Europe. And we're doing quite a lot. We managed to achieve, we created a lot of what I call opportunities for member states to develop their defense capabilities, especially financial opportunities, for example, safe loans. And that allows us to move ahead with our very clear plans, what we call roadmap on defense readiness which we need to achieve before 2030.
Let me follow up on this. So the European Union has no army. It doesn't have a command structure like NATO. So what does the EU bring to the table? What can the EU that NATO cannot do?
Well, NATO has military power, we have industrial power. And when we put both those things into one system, it brings really our defense readiness, because NATO is defining so-called capability targets, defense capability targets, in terms of how many tanks, how many artillery pieces our armies needs to have. And we're coming with our industrial policy. As European Union, we are now exactly coming to very important new stage with European Defence Industry Programme, a new system of industrial policy instruments, and also we can raise additional funds. What we did, for example, with the safe loans, we are planning to increase our defence spending in next multi-annual budget by 5 times. So a lot of things where we are really able to help member states to develop those capabilities which they need to have in order to be ready to defend and to deter whatever our adversaries are planning.
Yeah, and of course, why is Europe doing this? Because of the war in Ukraine that is now 4 years and counting. The latest push by the Trump administration to bring about peace between Ukraine and Russia. What is your assessment here? Should the Ukrainians accept it?
Well, Ukrainians really deserve peace, and this criminal war really should be stopped. But peace should come on some kind of just basis, and peace needs to bring guarantees that such kind of peace will be sustainable. And I am not so sure that Putin will agree with that. So there are really, well, we can congratulate U.S. administration that they are pushing for peace. Of course, some of the ideas maybe are not always acceptable, and here European leaders are showing very clear our position. We're helping Ukrainians also to withstand and to bring some new ideas. But we shall see, and it depends really on Putin, and I am not so sure that without much stronger pressure on him, that he will be convinced to sit down and to end this war.
A lot of people think that Putin is the perfect Trump whisperer on the international stage, and that Trump is doing this for different reasons, like he wants to make money, he wants to get the Nobel Peace Prize. How serious is this effort?
Well, I cannot, evaluate here. At least he's showing initiative. He is trying to, to push for peace. That's, we can only congratulate. If the ways in which, those attempts are moving ahead, if those ways are appropriate, it's difficult to say. History will show. What would be important, perhaps, that we as Europeans, as European Union, should not wait always when, some kind of new peace plans will come from Washington, D.C. It would be good for us also to have initiative on our side and to prepare our plan.
But how can Europe do that? Trump is deliberately sidelining the Europeans. He doesn't want to deal with them. Yet, we're there. We're a neighbor of Ukraine. We're much more impacted by this war. So what can European diplomacy do exactly?
We can do, as I said, we can really be stronger and more effective in showing our support to Ukraine in such a way that, it would be a strong message to Putin that he will not be able to achieve anything. First of all, our financial support, military support, for example, for Ukrainian capabilities to do deep strikes into Russian territory. Also, our support to air defense systems in Ukraine, where they need to defend their energy infrastructure and so on. So there are things which we can, move ahead. We can put that into some kind of package, and that should be effective, our alternative peace plan.
So the latest Russian provocations have sort of changed the tone in European capitals. And there are now more voices who say that Europe should go on the offensive when it comes to hybrid attacks, etc. Europe should hit back with offensive operations and all these things. Are you part of this chorus of voices?
Well, definitely, we need to see that Russian provocations, or what we call hybrid war, with provocations with drones, now also sabotage on railways, even terroristic, sabotage as it happened in Poland, demands from us much more clear strategy, how we are reacting. One thing is, how we are able to defend ourselves against some of those provocations. For example, it appears that really our capabilities to detect drones when they are flying into our territory, or to have cost-effective means to destroy them, in quite a deficit at the moment. So we need to develop those capabilities, technological capabilities. But from another side, we need really to be much more clear on our political reactions, because we can just predict that Russia, if we shall not find the ways how to stop them, the Russians will increase those provocations. They will be happening much more often. We can imagine that their volumes will become bigger, and that is what we really need to have in mind. And there are, of course, proposals from different member states, from ministers, for example. Italian Defense Minister Guido Crosetto proposed some kind of interesting paper on hybrid, defense of Europe, where he's really proposing to be much more proactive in terms of our reactions to such kind of provocations.
What about the famous drone wall that was being floated a few weeks ago, but now it's ominously quiet around that? I mean, we're talking about a common border with Russia of 3,000 or something kilometers. Where do you come down on this? Drone wall, yes or no?
Well, now we changed simply the title, because we understood that in some countries this, terminology wall was difficult to understand, how you can build drone wall and what does it mean. So now we call it Drone Defense Initiative. And really, discussions are continuing. As we understand, very soon, for example, Finland is calling a summit of Eastern Flank countries, exactly from Baltic Sea to the Black Sea, where some of those ideas will be discussed. And so the program of Eastern Flank Watch, it has inside of the whole plan very strong element related with drone defense, and here really we can learn a lot from Ukraine, and that is what we are preparing to do.
You have been a warning voice on this matter here for a long time. Whenever there was a Russian drone incursion, you said something, now we need to act, we're still ill-prepared. Do you see Europe moving into a common position here, acting and not just talking?
I see really clear movements. Now we have so-called, drone defense initiative coalition led by Netherlands, and also Latvians and Croatians are leading that coalition. We had last week we had a very interesting industrial roundtable with all the industrial producers of drones and anti-drone systems, and now we are coming from next year, from the beginning of next year. We shall have the new industrial program, European Defense Industry Program, EDIP, what we call, with new instruments to assist member states to join themselves into development of some kind of joint projects, regional projects, with European defense projects of common interest. So then, as we see from national investment plans, which were presented in relation with safe loans, also quite a lot of countries are going to invest those money into development of their drone defense capabilities. So things are moving. Maybe there is less of visibility, but real job is really moving ahead.
So drones have been shot down over Denmark, over the Baltics, over Romania, which is not a successful business model for those who dispatch these drones. But where do you see this going, the drone war? Is this are these the arms of the future?
Well, what we need to see is that at the moment, really, drones are changing very much warfare doctrines. And what we have seen, really, from technical point of view, we understood that we have not enough of detection capabilities. We have no cost-effective means to destroy drones. When you are shooting drone with a value of 10,000 euros, with a missile which costs 1 million euros, that's not the best way to defend yourself. And second question, really, what was very clear, also why we, as Europeans, were not able to prepare ourselves during the last several years when drones on a massive scale started to appear in Ukraine back in 2023. So it shows that really our way of how we are preparing, how we are able to change our understanding of modern warfare doctrines is again not at that level which we need to have. So that is why we put very recently also communication on so-called defense industry transformation roadmap. We need to move ahead. That's the major message which we need to understand.
In this context, you have suggested once that Europe should integrate Ukrainian battle-tested drone capabilities. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, and that is what we are discussing, both with Eastern Flank countries, from Baltic Sea to the Black Sea, and also with Ukrainians, that their knowledge, their experience because really we can say that Ukrainians built drone wall. Because they are really very effective in defending themselves against hundreds of drones flying each night. It's very important to learn from Ukrainians what we call ecosystem. Because what you can see in Ukraine, the drone producers are working together with operators. Operators are working, from Kiev center. They are managing drones on the front line. They are able to have very, very good digital statistics in order to follow what is happening on the front line, and definitely they are able to innovate very quickly, because what they are saying is that the drone which you are using at the moment in 2 months' time becomes obsolete, because Russians are finding how to jam or to destroy those drones. So those things really, which is not so easy, you cannot procure them very simply. You need to work together with Ukrainians in order to get that knowledge and that experience. So that is why I'm always repeating that when we are building Eastern Flank Watch, when we want to build also what we call, at the very beginning, drone wall on this border, we need to do that together with Ukrainians and including Ukraine. And that is what this experience of Ukrainians can then spread into all Europe, and that would be beneficial for all of us.
Now, winning a war is all about money, as we have learned many, many times. Of the 19 member states of the EU Security Action for Europe program, SAFE, 15 have included support for Ukraine. How much money are we talking about here?
Well, we shall need to check because now we are reading those plans. But we are talking here about billions. It's not just millions. It can be around 5 billion maybe, but we shall know more precise numbers after we shall check. After we shall, in some cases, we shall need to have conversation with the member states. So this is important, and it's important that really Ukraine is included into those plans of member states. Where they are looking for joint procurement together with Ukraine. Some member states are going to establish joint manufacturing capacities in European Union countries, but producing weapons for Ukraine. So from one side, yes, we are strengthening our support to Ukraine. From another side, we are learning more and more from Ukraine, and that is where what I'm calling that we are helping Ukraine, but also we are asking Ukraine to help us with their knowledge.
Is this going to help Ukraine in the long run, defending the sovereignty of its borders?
First of all, we need to understand that the best security guarantee for Ukraine is really their strong army, which we can help them to build. And that is why we have this porcupine strategy, whatever it's called, and that really Ukrainian defense capabilities.
I like this word.
Yeah, it should be such, that Russians would not even think in the future, to start new aggressions against Ukraine. And definitely, they are battle-tested army, they are battle-tested industry, very innovative industry. Also, it's very beneficial in looking how we can build and how we can strengthen our own defense capabilities. So that is why we need to look how we can integrate those capabilities. And that is our future task.
Commissioner, you're also in charge of space.
Sure.
Amazing. What are the challenges here for Europe?
Well, first of all, definitely space is of dual use. And since I am, defense and space commissioner, so we are spending quite a lot of our attention on how to develop those capabilities in space, which are very much needed for defense. Second, really, we need to see that we are not so bad in space, despite the fact that if you will ask, people on the streets, they will say, Elon Musk is doing everything. Europeans are very much behind. But we need to remember that, for example, our navigation system, Galileo, is the best in the world. Our Earth observation system is Copernicus, is the best in the world. Now we're building secure satellite communication system, something like Starlink, so-called IRIS², and experts are saying that it will be better than Starlink. So that's, where we are, behind Elon Musk and where we need to catch up is, of course, our launching capabilities. So. But we are coming also here with new ideas and new developments. What is important really for us when we are talking about our space capabilities, really to see how important is a modern warfare is space for defense. We have intelligence systems, we have secure satellite communication, we have navigation. But what is everything is absolutely this is what we call strategic enablers. And we need to develop them. So we have new plans, especially on intelligence data capabilities, so-called Earth observation governmental service, and we are moving ahead. And space is what is important. That in space we have good experience to build very successful pan-European projects, which is not the case in defense. So in defense we need to learn a lot from space.
All right, Andrius Kubilius, EU Commissioner for Defense and Space. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks
Great conversation.
Thanks a lot.